Did knights really live by a code of honor, fighting dragons and saving damsels? Were medieval ladies truly worshipped from afar by brave, heartbroken heroes? What if the stories that shaped our ideas of chivalry were more complex, more dangerous, and way more dramatic than you ever knew, influencing centuries of art, literature, and even how people saw themselves during the Middle Ages? Number 1. Amadis de Gaula. For centuries before novels as we know them even existed, there was one book that captivated Europe, particularly Spain and Portugal. Like no other, this wasn't just a story, it was a phenomenon, a blueprint for what a perfect knight should be. Amadis de Gaula is believed to have originated in the late 13th or early 14th century. Perhaps in Portugal, but it truly exploded in popularity with a revised Spanish edition published by Garci Rodriguez de Montalvo in 1508. This book became the ultimate bedtime story for aspiring knights, and it kept kings and commoners alike glued to its pages for generations. It was so beloved that when Don Quixote, the famous fictional knight, set out on his own adventures, he often referred to Amadis as his guiding star, the ideal he wished to imitate. Amadis is not just a knight, he is the knight, practically perfect in every way. He is handsome, brave beyond measure, kind, loyal, and utterly devoted to his lady, love Oriana, the Princess of Great Britain. His adventures are grand, spanning across many lands and oceans, filled with giants, monstrous beasts, wicked enchanters, and rival knights. Amadis is often described as the Knight of the Green Sword, or the Knight of the Dwarf, because of his distinctive armor and companions. He faces trials that test his strength, his wisdom, and especially his unwavering commitment to his lady. The story begins with a secret love affair between King Perion of Gaula and Princess Elisina of Brittany. Their forbidden romance results in the birth of Amadis, who is immediately set adrift in a small boat to protect his parents' secret. He is found and raised by a Scottish knight, and he grows into an extraordinary young man, showing incredible promise from a very young age. Even before he knows his true parentage, Amadis performs heroic deeds that astound everyone. He falls in love with Oriana when they are both young, a love that becomes the central pillar of his entire existence. Their relationship is a prime example of courtly love, where the knight's devotion to his lady inspires his greatest acts of chivalry. Amadis does not seek fame for its own sake. He seeks it to prove his worthiness to Oriana and to defend her honor. Throughout the many books of Amadis de Gaula, because it's not just one book, but a saga, Amadis embarks on countless quests. He battles the formidable giant Endriago, a terrifying monster with scales and a venomous breath in a fight that shows his incredible courage and skill. He rescues distressed maidens, frees enchanted castles, and defeats armies of evil knights. He travels to the Insula Firm, a magical island created by the sorceress Urganda, the Unknown, who often helps Amadis with her prophecies and magical aid. This island later becomes his kingdom, a place of peace and justice under his rule. One of the most famous episodes involves the Arch of Loyal Lovers and the Forbidden Chamber on the Insula Firm. Only truly faithful lovers can pass through the arch and enter the chamber. Many knights and ladies try, but only Amadis and Oriana succeed, proving the purity and strength of their love. This scene reinforced the idea that true chivalry was not just about fighting, but also about profound emotional fidelity. Amadis's love for Oriana is so absolute that it often causes him great suffering. When Oriana briefly doubts his love or is swayed by false rumors, Amadis goes into a period of deep, melancholic madness, retreating to a remote hermitage known as the Peña Pobre, or Poor Rock. He sheds his armor and lives as a hermit, suffering intensely until Oriana realizes her mistake and sends him a message of forgiveness. This extreme suffering for love was a highly admired trait in chivalric romances. The enemies Amadis faces are not just physical, they are often supernatural. Arcadis, the Enchanter, is a recurring villain, a powerful sorcerer who uses dark magic and trickery to oppose Amadis and his allies. Amadis is also often challenged by rival knights, some noble, some treacherous, who test his martial prowess. His half-brother, Gane, is another prominent character, a strong and valiant knight who stands by Amadis through thick and thin, though Gane is more prone to earthly pleasures and less focused on a single lady. The influence of Amadis de Gaula was immense. It was translated into many European languages, including French, Italian, German, English, and Dutch, spreading its vision of ideal knighthood across the continent. Provided a popular escapist fantasy, but also a moral guide. Readers were fascinated by Amadis's adventures and inspired by his virtues. The book defined what it meant to be a perfect knight in the eyes of many, for centuries emphasizing not just strength and bravery, but also courtesy, justice, and absolute devotion to a single lady. It set a high bar for chivalric behavior and helped shape the ideals of the Spanish Golden Age, a time of great artistic and literary achievement. Even though it is now less widely read than it once was, its echoes can be found in countless stories and works of art that came after it, proving its status as a defining romance of its era. Number 2. Tristan and Iseult. This story is one of the most powerful and enduring tales of tragic love in Western literature. It is not tied to a single author or a single definitive version like some other romances. Instead, it exists in many different forms, preserved through various medieval poems and prose narratives, from the 12th century onwards, in French, German, English, and Norse traditions. Each version offers slightly different details, but the core narrative remains constant. A love so intense, so fated, that it leads to sorrow and death. Tristan and Iseult is a tale of forbidden passion, honor, betrayal, and the overwhelming power of a magical love potion. The story typically begins with Tristan, a young orphan knight of great skill and noble lineage, serving his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall. Tristan is a master of music, hunting, and warfare. He proves his loyalty to King Mark by fighting and killing Morholt of Ireland, a fearsome knight who demands tribute from Cornwall. Tristan is wounded in this battle by Morholt's poisoned spear, and his wound will not heal. He is secretly sent in a boat to Ireland, where he is discovered by Iseult, the beautiful princess of Ireland, who is also a skilled healer. She nurses him back to health, not knowing he is the slayer of her uncle. Tristan escapes back to Cornwall once he is healed. Later, King Mark decides he wants to marry Iseult. He sends Tristan as his emissary to bring her back from Ireland. This is where the fateful event occurs. Iseult's mother, the Queen of Ireland, prepares a powerful love potion intended for King Mark, and Iseult, meant to ensure their lifelong devotion to each other. She entrusts her maid, Gane, with the potion. However, during the voyage back to Cornwall, Tristan and Iseult mistakenly drink the potion together. The moment the elixir passes their lips, an irresistible consuming love ignites between them, a love that binds them utterly and completely, regardless of duty, honor, or consequence. They fall desperately in love, a love that is both a blessing and a curse. Despite their overwhelming passion, Iseult marries King Mark upon their arrival in Cornwall. What follows is a series of clandestine meetings, narrow escapes, and heart-wrenching deceptions as Tristan and Iseult try to hide their affair from the suspicious King Mark and his envious courtiers. Gane, Iseult's loyal maid, often helps them, sometimes risking her own life to protect their secret. The lovers devise clever tricks to fool King Mark, such as a famous scene where Tristan poses as a leper, or when they manage to stand between King Mark and an objectively lying King Mark, though often forgiving due to his deep affection for Tristan, is constantly troubled by rumors and the machinations of those who wish to see Tristan disgraced. There are numerous episodes where the lovers are caught, or almost caught, leading to dramatic confrontations and desperate flights. They are sometimes banished, forced to live in the wilderness in exile, relying on each other and their wits to survive. Their love is so strong that they endure immense hardship for the sake of their stolen moments together. One notable episode involves the dwarf Frol, a treacherous courtier, who often tries to expose Tristan and Iseult. His constant spying and manipulation add to the tension and danger the lovers face. Another important character is Under King Mark's nephew, who also seeks to expose the affair. The tale highlights the relentless pressure and scrutiny placed upon those who dare to defy societal norms and royal decree. Tragic culmination of their story often involves Tristan leaving Cornwall, either banished or choosing to separate from Iseult, for her safety or his own honor. He travels to Brittany, where he marries another Iseult of the White Hands, out of loneliness or a sense of duty. But he never truly loves her. His heart remains with Iseult of Ireland. When Tristan is once again wounded, this time by a poisoned spear in a battle, and is on his deathbed, he sends for Iseult of Ireland, believing only her healing touch can save him. They arrange a signal. If the ship returning with Iseult has white sails, it means she is coming. If it has black sails, it means she is not. Iseult of the White Hands, consumed by jealousy, sees the white sails but tells Tristan they are black. Tristan, heartbroken and believing his true love has abandoned him, dies. When Iseult of Ireland arrives and finds him dead, her grief is so profound that she lies down beside him and dies of a broken heart. The story of Tristan and Iseult became a cornerstone of medieval courtly love literature, emphasizing the power of fated, passionate love over all other concerns. It explored themes of loyalty, betrayal, duty, and the devastating consequences of consuming desire. Its enduring popularity ensured that its emotional power continued to resonate, influencing countless poets, playwrights, and composers for centuries, including Wagner's famous opera Tristan und Iseult. Tale's exploration of love as a force of nature, both glorious and destructive, truly defined an era of romantic storytelling. Number 3. Parzival. Written by the German poet Wolfram von Eschenbach around the early 13th century, Parzival is a monumental work of chivalric romance, stretching over 25,000 lines. It is widely considered one of the greatest achievements of medieval German literature, offering a deep and complex exploration of chivalry, spiritual development, and the quest for the Holy Grail. Unlike some other Grail stories that focus primarily on adventure, Parzival emphasizes the protagonist's inner journey, his mistakes, and his eventual redemption. The story begins with Parzival's unusual upbringing. His mother, Herzeloid, grieving the loss of her knightly husband and hoping to shield her son from the dangers of the knightly world, raises him in isolation in a remote forest. She keeps him ignorant of chivalry of the world and even of his own noble lineage. Parzival is a naive, simple-minded youth who knows nothing beyond nature. His innocence is so profound that he is often described as a fool or simpleton in the early parts of the story. One day, while hunting, Parzival encounters a group of splendidly armored knights. Their gleaming armor and noble bearing captivate him. Overwhelmed by their appearance, he mistakes them for angels. He immediately decides he wants to become a knight despite his mother's desperate pleas. He rides off dressed in simple rusted clothes, carrying only a crude javelin. His mother dies of grief shortly after his departure. Parzival's early adventures are marked by his naivety and his clumsy attempts at chivalry. He encounters Gishoot, a noble woman whom he treats crudely, taking her ring and a kiss, leaving her humiliated. He later meets Gurnemans, a wise old knight, who teaches him proper knightly etiquette, courtesy, and the importance of compassion. Gurnemans advises Parzival to ask questions when unsure and to show pity. Parzival takes these lessons to heart, but later, at a critical moment, fails to apply them. His most significant encounter is his visit to the Grail Castle, Montsauvage, the spiritual center of the story. Parzival is unexpectedly invited to the castle by a mysterious fisherman. Inside, he witnesses a solemn and enigmatic procession, a young woman carrying the Grail, a bleeding spear and other sacred objects. He sees the suffering of the Grail King and Fortis, who is afflicted by a terrible wound that causes him constant agony. And Fortis's pain reflects the suffering of his kingdom, which lies in a desolate state. Parzival, remembering Gurnemans' advice not to ask too many questions, remains silent, failing to ask the crucial question, "What ails you, uncle?" or "What troubles you?" This simple question, if asked, would have healed Fortis and restored the kingdom. His silence is a grave mistake, a failure of compassion and understanding despite his good intention. He leaves the Grail Castle only to be cursed by his cousin Segun and the Grail messenger Kundry for his failure. Segun, who is grieving over her dead beloved, reproaches Parzival for his lack of empathy and his inability to lift the Grail King's curse. This public shaming plunges Parzival into a deep spiritual crisis. He despairs and loses faith in God, believing that his efforts to be a knight are meaningless if he cannot achieve spiritual enlightenment. For the next 5 years, Parzival wanders the world as a knight, performing many heroic deeds. But without a clear purpose or connection to God, he seeks to find the Grail Castle again, but it remains hidden from him. He fights in tournaments, wins fame, and even unknowingly fights and defeats his half-brother Fairfiz, a non-Christian knight whose skin is black and white. Fairfiz, noble and powerful, becomes a symbol of the universality of virtue. During this period of wandering and inner turmoil, Parzival learns humility and patience. He eventually encounters a wise hermit, Trevisan, who reveals that Trevisan is Fortis's brother and Parzival's uncle. Trevisan explains the mysteries of the Grail, its divine nature and the lineage of its guardians. He teaches Parzival that the Grail cannot be won by force or by mere knightly prowess, but only through humility, compassion, and divine grace. He explains the nature of sin and redemption, emphasizing that even the greatest knights must seek forgiveness and understanding. This spiritual guidance is crucial to Parzival's transformation. Armed with new understanding and a purified spirit, Parzival eventually finds the Grail Castle once more. This time, when he sees Fortis, he asks the compassionate question, "What ails you, uncle?" This simple act of empathy immediately heals Fortis and restores the kingdom. Parzival is then accepted as the new Grail King, fulfilling his destiny not through battle, but through genuine compassion and spiritual insight. He unites the world of chivalry with the world of spirituality. Parzival is a powerful exploration of the idea that true chivalry is not just about physical strength and martial prowess, but also about spiritual growth, moral integrity, humility, and compassion. Wolfram von Eschenbach critiques the purely secular aspects of chivalry and highlights the importance of faith and inner purity. The story defined a new dimension of medieval romance, adding profound philosophical and religious depth to the popular tales of knights and quests. Its intricate structure, vivid characters, and deep themes made it a cornerstone of German literary tradition and a lasting testament to the quest for meaning in the medieval world. Number 4. Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart. Authored by Chrétien de Troyes, a French poet working in the late 12th century, Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart, is a pivotal work in the Arthurian cycle and a foundational text for the concept of courtly love. Chrétien is often credited with truly shaping the Arthurian legends into the form we recognize today, introducing many of the key characters and plot lines that would later become famous. This particular romance focuses almost entirely on the character of Lancelot, his devotion to Queen Guinevere, and the extreme lengths to which he will go to prove his love. The story begins with a mysterious knight, Meleagant, who abducts Queen Guinevere and some of King Arthur's knights, taking them to his impenetrable kingdom, from which no one returns. King Arthur is distraught and sends Sir Kay, his seneschal, to rescue the queen. Kay, known for his boasting, demands the quest and insists on taking Guinevere himself, even if he cannot protect her. Arthur reluctantly agrees. However, Kay is quickly defeated and the queen is taken captive. At this point, Lancelot, who is not initially named but referred to as the best knight in the world, rides into the scene. He is desperately searching for Guinevere, driven by a profound and overwhelming love for her. He encounters a dwarf driving a cart, the kind of cart used to carry criminals to execution, a symbol of shame and dishonor. The dwarf offers to tell Lancelot where Guinevere has been taken, but only if Lancelot agrees to ride in the cart. After a brief moment of hesitation, 2 steps. As the story explicitly states, Lancelot, prioritizing his love for Guinevere above his knightly honor, steps into the cart. This act is considered a profound humiliation for a knight, yet Lancelot willingly endures it for his lady. This momentary hesitation, however, will later be held against him by Guinevere. Lancelot's journey to rescue Guinevere is a series of seemingly impossible trials and tests of his devotion. He faces dangerous bridges, including the Sword Bridge and the Underwater Bridge. The Sword Bridge is literally a sharp sword, as wide as a lance, stretching across a raging river. To cross it, Lancelot must crawl, cutting his hands and feet, enduring immense pain, a vivid symbol of his suffering for love. The Underwater Bridge is submerged and slick, equally perilous. His unwavering determination is what propels him forward. Along the way, he defeats many knights and overcomes various obstacles, often demonstrating an almost superhuman ability, driven by his single-minded focus on Guinevere. He eventually reaches Meleagant's kingdom, a land from which travelers cannot escape. There he faces Meleagant himself in a series of fierce duels. Meleagant is a powerful and treacherous knight, and their rivalry becomes a central conflict. Lancelot consistently proves himself to be the superior fighter, but Meleagant often resorts to trickery and deception. A crucial moment in the story is when Lancelot finally reaches Guinevere. She has heard of his humiliating ride in the cart. When they finally meet, she treats him coldly, turning away from him. This is her punishment for his moment of hesitation before getting into the cart. Lancelot, devastated by her rejection, believes he has failed her and almost throws himself from a window in despair. Later, he learns from a maiden that Guinevere's coldness was a test, and that she now acknowledges his love. This illustrates the complex and often demanding nature of courtly love, where the lady holds absolute power over her knight's emotions and actions. Their love, though secret, is revealed in fleeting moments of passionate devotion. Lancelot eventually defeats Meleagant in a decisive combat, liberating Guinevere and the other captives. However, Meleagant, ever deceitful, later captures Lancelot and imprisons him in a tower, trapping him with a heavy stone slab. Lancelot escapes through a series of clever maneuvers, and the help of Meleagant's sister, who admires him. He returns to King Arthur's court just in time to face Meleagant in a final public duel, arranged by Arthur himself. In this climactic battle, Lancelot defeats and kills Meleagant, finally securing Guinevere's safety and his own honor. Chrétien de Troyes' portrayal of Lancelot established the archetype of the perfect courtly lover. Lancelot is brave, loyal, and courteous, but his defining characteristic is his absolute self-sacrificing devotion to Guinevere. This story is famous for its extreme depiction of courtly love, where the knight's entire identity and worth are tied to his lady's approval, and he performs extraordinary feats not for personal glory, but purely to earn her favor. It explored the tensions between a knight's loyalty to his king and his devotion to his lady, a theme that would become central to the later downfall of Arthur's court. Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart, defined a popular understanding of romance and chivalry, setting the standard for how love and heroism could intertwine in medieval storytelling. Number 5. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Written by an anonymous poet in the late 14th century, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a masterpiece of English literature, a brilliant example of Arthurian romance with a unique blend of chivalry, magic, and deep moral questioning. It is famous for its intricate plot, vivid descriptions, and complex exploration of honor, temptation, and the human condition. Unlike many romances that focus solely on grand quests and battles, this poem delves into the inner struggles of its hero. The story begins in King Arthur's court at Camelot during a festive Christmas feast. The celebration is suddenly interrupted by the dramatic entrance of a fearsome and mysterious figure, the Green Knight. This enormous, imposing figure is entirely green. His skin, his hair, his clothes, even his horse are all shades of green. He carries no armor, only a large battle axe in one hand and a holly branch in the other, symbolizing both peace and war. The Green Knight challenges Arthur's court to a strange and terrifying game known as the beheading game. He offers to allow any knight to strike him once with his own axe on the condition that the knight agrees to receive a blow in return exactly a year and a day later. The court is initially stunned into silence. King Arthur himself, unwilling to let the challenge go unanswered, steps forward to accept. However, Sir Gawain, Arthur's nephew and one of his most loyal and virtuous knights, humbly asks to take Arthur's place. Gawain is known throughout the court for his impeccable courtesy, courage, and unwavering adherence to the chivalric code. Gawain strikes the blow, and with one swift swing, he severs the Green Knight's head. To the astonishment of everyone present, the Green Knight does not die. Instead, he calmly picks up his own severed head, which then speaks, reminding Gawain of his promise to meet him at the Green Chapel in a year and a day to receive the return blow. With a chilling farewell, the Green Knight rides out of the hall, leaving the court in awe and apprehension. The poem then fast forwards to the approaching New Year. Gawain, true to his word, prepares for his perilous journey to find the Green Chapel and face his fate. He rides through a desolate and dangerous wilderness, encountering various monstrous creatures and enduring harsh weather, all while carrying the heavy burden of his solemn promise. Just before Christmas, Gawain stumbles upon a magnificent, seemingly magical castle, Bertilac's castle, where he is warmly welcomed by the lord of the castle, Bertilac de Holderzer, and his beautiful, charming lady. Gawain is invited to stay and rest until New Year's Day, which is the appointed time for his encounter with the Green Knight. Lord Bertilac proposes a game. While he goes out hunting each day, Gawain must stay at the castle. Whatever Bertilac catches in the hunt he will give to Gawain. In return, Gawain must give Bertilac whatever he gains in the castle during the day. Gawain readily agrees to this exchange of winnings. For 3 days, Lord Bertilac goes hunting, bringing back deer, a boar, and a fox. Each evening he gives Gawain the spoils of his hunt. In return, Gawain, faced with the seductive advances of Lady Bertilac, gives Bertilac a kiss on the first evening, 2 kisses on the second, and 3 kisses on the third. Lady Bertilac is exceptionally beautiful and persistent, tempting Gawain in his bedroom. Gawain politely but firmly resists her attempts to seduce him, maintaining his honor and his chastity. However, on the 3rd day, in addition to the kisses, Lady Bertilac also offers Gawain a magical green girdle, or sash. She claims that anyone wearing the girdle cannot be harmed or killed. Tempted by the thought of surviving the Green Knight's blow, Gane accepts the girdle, but he keeps it a secret from Lord Bertilac, thus breaking his part of the agreement to truthfully exchange all his gains. This single act of deception, driven by a very human desire to survive, becomes the pivotal moment of the story. On New Year's Day, Gawain sets out for the Green Chapel, a strange moss-covered mound that resembles a burial barrow. There he finds the Green Knight sharpening his axe. Gawain kneels prepared to receive the blow. The Green Knight raises his axe for the first time, but stops just before it touches Gawain, a feigned blow. He raises it a second time, again stopping short. On the third swing, the axe barely nicks Gawain's neck, drawing a small amount of blood. The Green Knight then reveals himself to be Lord Bertilac. He explains that the entire challenge, the castle and Lady Bertilac's temptations, were all orchestrated by the sorceress Morgan le Fay, Arthur's half-sister, who sought to test the pride of Arthur's court. The 3 blows corresponded to the 3 days of the game at the castle. The first 2 feigned blows were for Gawain's honest exchange of kisses, and the third, which drew blood, was for his secret concealment of the green girdle. The slight cut on Gawain's neck is a mark of his failure, his moment of human weakness. Gawain is deeply ashamed and mortified by his failure, even though it was a small one. He realizes that his desire for self-preservation led him to compromise his knightly integrity. He wears the green girdle from then on as a reminder of his sin and humility. He returns to Camelot, recounting his adventure and his failure, openly admitting his flaw. The Knights of the Round Table, in a gesture of solidarity, decide to wear green sashes themselves in honor of Gawain's ordeal and his honesty, acknowledging the shared humanity and fallibility that even the greatest knights possess. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a complex and profound romance. It explores the true meaning of chivalry, suggesting that it's not just about bravery in battle, but also about integrity, honesty, and spiritual purity. It highlights the tension between the ideal of the perfect knight and the reality of human weakness and fear. The poem's vivid imagery, poetic language, and moral depth solidified its place as a corner snovenish lidifornis of Ivli Terse. Number 6. Lamort de Arthur. Published in 1485 by William Caxton, Lamort de Arthur is Sir Thomas Malory's compilation and retelling of various Arthurian legends. It is not just one story, but a sweeping epic that gathers together centuries of Arthurian tales, presenting them as a cohesive, if sometimes sprawling, narrative of the rise and fall of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. Malory's work became the definitive English version of the Arthurian legend, shaping our understanding of Arthur, Lancelot, Guinevere, Merlin, and the quest for the Holy Grail. It cemented the image of Camelot as a golden age of chivalry destined to end in tragedy. Malory's Lamort de Arthur begins with the magical birth of King Arthur, the son of King Uther Pendragon, an Igraine orchestrated by the wizard Merlin. Arthur proves his rightful claim to the throne by pulling the sword from the stone, or in some versions, the sword from the lake. Excalibur, given by the Lady of the Lake. He establishes his court at Camelot and forms the noble fellowship of the Knights of the Round Table, a company of the bravest and most virtuous knights in the world, bound by an oath to uphold justice, protect the innocent, and pursue honorable quests. Early parts of the saga detail Arthur's consolidation of power, his wars against rebel kings, and his establishment of a realm of justice and peace. Merlin acts as his wise counselor, guiding him through magical threats and political challenges. Arthur's marriage to the beautiful Queen Guinevere marks a period of glory for Camelot. A significant portion of Lamort de Arthur is dedicated to the adventures of individual knights. Sir Lancelot du Lac is introduced as the greatest knight in the world, peerless in jousting and battle, known for his courtesy and loyalty. However, his secret, passionate love affair with Queen Guinevere, Arthur's wife, becomes the central tragic flaw that eventually unravels the kingdom. Their forbidden love, while often portrayed as a noble, courtly devotion, ultimately leads to deceit and betrayal. Other famous knights embark on their own quests profiting various aspects of chivalry. Sir Tristan's tragic love for Iseult, mirroring the Lancelot-Guinevere affair, is also detailed. Sir Gawain, Arthur's valiant nephew, is celebrated for his strength and loyalty, although his character sometimes demonstrates flaws like vengeance. Quest for the Holy Grail forms another major section of Malory's work, shifting the focus from earthly chivalry to spiritual purity. The Grail appears at Camelot, visible only to the holiest knights, inspiring many to undertake the perilous journey to find it. This quest is not for every knight. It requires absolute chastity, humility, and spiritual devotion. Many valiant knights, including Lancelot, fail to achieve the Grail because of their earthly sins. Only a few chosen knights succeed. Sir Galahad, Lancelot's son, a knight of unparalleled purity. Sir Percival, a naive but ultimately virtuous knight. And Sir Bors, a steadfast and devout knight. Galahad is ultimately the one to achieve the Grail. And upon doing so, he is taken up to heaven, symbolizing the unattainable spiritual ideal. Following the Grail quest, the focus returns to the growing tension and eventual downfall of Arthur's kingdom. The secret affair between Lancelot and Guinevere is finally exposed by Sir Agravain and Sir Mordred, Arthur's illegitimate son. This revelation shatters the Round Table, leading to a bitter civil war. Lancelot, forced to choose between his king and his queen, rescues Guinevere from being burned at the stake. But in doing so, he accidentally kills several loyal knights, including Gawain's brothers, Gareth and Gaheris. This ignites Gawain's fierce desire for vengeance against Lancelot. Arthur, bound by honor, is forced to pursue Lancelot, leading to a long and devastating war in France. While Arthur is away, Mordred seizes control of England, falsely claiming the throne. Arthur returns to confront Mordred in a final cataclysmic battle at Camelot. This battle results in the death of almost all the remaining knights and a fatal wound for Arthur. Before his death, Arthur commands Sir Bedivere, the last surviving loyal knight, to cast his magical sword Excalibur back into the lake. After much hesitation, Bedivere fulfills the command, and a hand emerges from the water to catch the sword. Arthur is then taken away on a mysterious barge by three queens, presumably to the magical Isle of Avalon, where he is said to rest, possibly to return one day. Guinevere, filled with remorse for her role in the kingdom's destruction, becomes a nun, and Lancelot, overcome by grief and penitence, becomes a hermit. They both dedicate their remaining lives to seeking forgiveness, dying shortly after one another, their deaths symbolizing the end of an era. Lamort de Arthur became the foundational text for all subsequent English retellings of the Arthurian legends. Malory's work is a powerful elegy for a lost golden age, exploring themes of loyalty, betrayal, love, honor, sin, and redemption. It depicted the ideal of chivalry in its purest form, but also demonstrated its fragility and the human failings that could lead to its destruction. For centuries, it defined the medieval understanding of knighthood, inspiring countless authors and readers, and ensuring that the legends of King Arthur and his court would forever remain a cornerstone of Western imagination, shaping the very concept of heroism and tragic grandeur.